Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Stay for the Credits. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to be finally bringing this to life. I'm Badara. I'm your host. And what is this podcast? Basically, each week we're going to be breaking down the biggest stories from the world of film, television, music with thoughtful analysis, industry insight, and genuine appreciation for the people behind the entertainment we love. There'll be opinions, of course, but this isn't really a podcast built on outrage and clickbait. The purpose is genuinely just understand and have normal conversations about, what's going on in music, what's going on in film, what's going on in TV. We also want to platform people that are behind the screen, so people making the art. So production designers, costume designers, sound engineers. So we're going to be having those people on as guests as well, which is kind of the genesis of this podcast. Hence, stay for the credits. We want to highlight all those people in those credits. So I am really, really excited. But for today's episode, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to talk about Avengers Doomsday. There was a new official concept art that was released, and then there was some drama around that. We're going to break all that down. We're going to talk about Moana's live action box office results. That was interesting, came in lower than expected. SpiderMan Brand New Day has interesting box office tracking. We're going to talk about that. Supergirl had so much hoopla around it. We're going to break all that down. Ariana Grande, unfortunately, has pulled out of American Horror Story. That's going to be an interesting discussion. And Law Roach, the work he does for the marketing team of these studios, we're going to discuss that and what that might mean moving forward. So yeah, get a snack, get a drink, let's get into it. The first thing I want to discuss is Avengers Doomsday. So something really interesting happened. Kevin Feige went to Shanghai to start promoting this film. Whilst there, they released this official concept art for the film. It kind of reminds you of what they did with Avengers Infinity War. They released something similar. The image looked kind of similar. However, there's this guy called Andy Park. He was the director of visual development over at Marvel. However, he and I believe him and his whole team were recently fired because Disney's trying to make efficiencies. As a result, this is the last project he worked on. And there was a lot of conversations around, should they be using his image when you fired him? Like, what are the ethics around that? And at the end of the day, he was paid for his work. And this is the last piece of content he worked on. And I think it is important that they continue releasing that. I think it would have been really, really bad if they hired somebody else to come in and create new concept art for the film that's already been shot and is currently being edited. So I think that part of it isn't as controversial. I think people just got a bit, I can understand. People got a bit sensitive around the idea that you fired somebody, now you're using his art. Why would you do that? But then the second interesting thing was they had Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Tony Stark. Not Tony Stark, what's his real name? Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark. He's so synonymous with that. They had them three pop up in pre-recorded segments, basically promoting Avengers Doomsday. And this was the other thing that people were really annoyed about, because it's kind of bizarre to have three people basically that came from the previous era of Marvel and basically negating the last 5 years and not using any of the new characters that you introduced in the last 5 years to be the face of this thing. It feels like they're kind of reverting back to the Infinity Saga and having, the three leads, the three men, kind of fronting this new saga, despite the fact that two of them weren't really present in this saga at all, this multiverse saga at all. And I understand that. I understand why people might be frustrated by that. However, I also see it from the studio's perspective. I think for them, they're thinking, listen, the last 5 years, a lot of the movies we released didn't really hit with audiences. Let's revert back to what worked. We need to sell tickets to Avengers Doomsday. We know that these three leads are incredibly charismatic. People love them. People have followed them for 10 years. Let's use them to front the marketing. However, there is a risk here. This isn't risk-free, because the risk is that the core fan base that has carried Marvel for the last 5 or so years, if they feel disgruntled, if they feel like they've been abandoned in pursuit of the general public that's kind of casually watches these films, there is a risk that once that core fan base drops out, then you might not even be able to get the general public interested. You need that core fan base to drum up interest, to drum up engagement. So I think that is going to be a really, really interesting thing to see how it plays out. So Kevin Feige was asked about, will there be any female projects coming up soon? His response was that they're going to be coming soon to the Marvel Universe. I feel like that would have kind of iron this out a bit, because I think people now are thinking, oh, we're not gonna have a single solo female project ever again, unless if they're part of a big group of people where men already are. So I'm sure we will see a lot of these characters soon. But I think all of this, like all of these things I've discussed, won't matter as long as the trailer that's coming out, I believe they're gonna release it at Comic-Con. If that comes out and it's a hit, everything I've just discussed, forget about it. No one's gonna care. I think they are hiding a lot of characters as to be surprises. So watch this space. Comic-Con is coming up literally very soon. I will be covering all of that. So we'll see. I have faith. Okay, let's talk about Moana's box office. So the weekend opening box office for the live action Moana is looking like it's going to barely scratch 40 million, which is a massive underperformance. And I think the team at Disney are going to be very disappointed by that result. There's a couple of reasons for this. I think the main one is that it's too much content. Like the first Moana came out 10 years ago, then they released a sequel to that 2 years ago. And to do a live action version of the original merely 10 years later and 2 years from its own sequel is just too quick. And yes, there is a lot of demand for Moana. Like, I think last year Moana was the most streamed movie for the whole year by any studio. So I understand that feeling of there is so much demand here, let's just exploit it. However, look how that's helped Marvel. Like, that's kind of what Marvel did. Marvel leaned into too much content and it kind of created this oversaturated market where now the films are struggling, you know. So I think that's what's happened with Moana. It's too much. It's too much Moana. And also, I've seen the film. It's not particularly exceptional. Like, the critics have it at 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score is an A-, which for a film like this, normally these films get an A or an A+. So I think Disney might have over-egged it a bit, but it's a lesson. I still think there is value in these live action remakes. I think it's a case of being very selective about which ones you do and when you do it. For something like Moana, because the animated version was so vibrant and the colors and the water and all of that, to then translate that to live action is really hard. Like Maui, for example, like The Rock's character here, feels so subdued compared to the animated version. And I don't think that's even The Rock's fault. That just comes from the fact that in animation, you can create the most expressive eyes and, you know, you can be very stylistic, whereas a human can't do that. If The Rock literally imitated what the character in the animated version did, he would look so silly. Like, I mean, maybe somebody else might have been able to pull it off, but I don't think The Rock could. The other thing I wanted to discuss, given this is stay for the credits, I want to talk about the hair in this film. Again, it's a learning opportunity. I'm sure the team tried and they did the best they could, and I understand the reason why they went for wigs, because this is a character that's in water and then out of water. Like, it will be too much on the actual actress's hair. However, the hair here looks so flat and dull. Like, the actual actress's hair is like super curly, just like the animated version. And I think to strip this character of that curly hair, there was something really sad about it watching it. Like, The Rock's character has awful hair as well, but I could kind of forgive that. I'm like, oh, it's a male character, yada yada. But I think there was really something really sad about seeing this character that represents so many young girls. Like, I've got a cousin that loves this character, and partly it's because she sees herself in the character. So to have this live action version where the hair looks incredibly fat and a bit dull, it was sad. So, and there are so many amazing wigologists out there that I'm sure even if they wanted to just go with like the wig option, I'm sure there are people that could have created all kinds of versions of this wig, like one that's wet, one that's dry, to meet the moment. So yeah, I hope they learn. I hope they hire people that know how to deal with this kind of hair, this kind of textured hair. I mean, again, that's just a minor point, but I think it just speaks to a larger thing about this film. Everything kind of just nothing felt plussed in the live action version. You know, normally there's something that feels like you're able to like flesh out this character more, or you're able to add this bit of nuance by making it live action, or this bit of sincerity by making it live action. Nothing here felt better. And again, I'm sure Disney's going to learn from this. I doubt they're going to start making live action versions of films. We're not going to be seeing a Coco live action anytime soon, is all I'll say. So My advice would be stick to just continue making sequels. Like I think people still care about Moana, but you have to make something new. I think going back and making a live action version of a film that came out 10 years ago, it's too soon, babe. It's too soon. But we live and we learn. We live and we learn. Let's talk about Supergirl. Okay, guys, the hysteria around this film, people lost their minds. This idea that DC is now in the bin, like they've lost it. James Gunn needs to be fired. We need to start from scratch. It's so hyperbolic and it's too much. First of all, yes, Supergirl is a massive disappointment. I'm sure the studio's not happy. I'm sure they're not happy with the results. I'm sure they're having serious conversations about how to avoid this happening in the future. However, and yes, it's I think by the end of its global run, it will probably only have made $150 million or something. However, even with that, I think it's too soon to be looking for the big red button. We've got so many new projects coming up. We've got Clayface coming up around Halloween time. We've got Lanterns TV series coming up. We've got Man of Tomorrow coming up next year. So there is still hope. The question then is, why did this go so horribly wrong? I think for one, I think releasing another movie in the Superman family, basically, within 11 months, I think is too soon. Because I think for the casual viewer, all they see is the same Superman uniform on somebody else. And they're like, I just saw this film 11 years ago. Yes, the characters are different. But for someone that's just watching a trailer or just, observing this casually, they're not going to be able to clock the difference. Also, James Gunn loves these obscure characters. And I think we live in a very different market. I think if this film had come out 7 years ago, I think it would have done way better than this. However, we live in such a saturated superhero market. You can't get away with mediocre. Like, things have to be exceptional. People want event movie-going experiences. The Odyssey is going to be an event movie-going experience. Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be an event movie-going experience. Toy Story felt like that, and also James Gunn loves these obscure characters. And unfortunately, you can't be starting your universe with them. Like, he should have gone with Batman or Wonder Woman, something that feels visually distinct from the previous film, because Supergirl visually just feels like it's the same film we saw like 11 months ago. Unless if you're already in the comic book world and you know who these characters are, you just see another Superman suit on somebody else. It's too soon. They should have gone with something bold, that felt different, that felt fresh, that felt, okay, this is something new. I can't wait to go see it. So yeah, I say all that to say, what bad film does not define a universe? They will be fine, I'm sure. I'm sure Clayface is going to be really good. I think the future projects will determine how these go. The one thing I will say as a cautionary note, though, again, going back to James Gunn's love of these obscure superhero characters, Peacemaker, Creature Commandos, none of these were particularly hits. Superman last year did okay. It did better than any Marvel film did. It made 600 million. But that's not crazy numbers. It's like fine. Like, we move on and we hope that we're able to build. So I think to go from 600 to like 150 million is kind of crazy. So yeah, I hope they'll learn. Again, I'm sure they are. Like, there are some incredibly smart people working over at DC. I'm sure they're going to figure this out. They're going to learn the right lessons from this. And then they're going to pivot and move on. Now, speaking of the need for event movie-going experiences, Spider-Man Brand New Day is on track to open well north of 200 million at the US box office. I think there are only 5 or 6 films that have ever done that. So if Spider-Man is able to join that list, that would be insane. Mind you, the last Spider-Man film did. I believe Spider-Man Brand New Day opened north of 200 million. So again, and why is this projected to be such a success? For one, it's been 5 years since the last one. They're not just pumping out Spider-Man films every 2 years. So there is this pent-up demand for it. Again, you're creating an event, right? There's pent-up demand, you're creating an event. People are going to show up. Number 2, people trust the Spider-Man brand. People love Spider-Man. Like, every kid at some point will have had a Spider-Man backpack or a Spider-Man pair of trainers or like a socks or something. It's just part of the culture. I think he's like one of the most enduring and most well-loved characters ever, which is kind of insane. Even I had a Spider-Man phase. So yeah, I think that's the other thing. People love Spider-Man. People love Tom Holland's Spider-Man in particular as well. Tom Holland, here's the thing, with a lot of these superhero films, sometimes the person playing the character doesn't really embody, they just take it as a job and they move on. Tom Holland really is an ambassador for the Spider-Man brand. Like, he loves being Spider-Man. He loves engaging with the fans, kids, everything like that. Whereas, we've seen this with other brands where people will take a job, kind of just do their job and move on, which is totally fine, by the way. But I think something special happens when you can tell a character loves play, when I can tell an actor loves playing a character, and they take on that role beyond just playing it on screen. And I think Tom Holland has done that. And for that, I applaud him. I applaud him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well this performs. I'm curious, where do you think this is going to land? My prediction is 234 million opening weekend in the US. What do you think? If you were to guess, what would you say? What would your prediction be? I would really love to see them. I feel like some of you are going to have like some wild predictions. I saw someone the other day say 300 million. That is not going to happen. That is not going to happen. By the way, it's not just Tom Holland that's really good in this role. Zendaya and him as a pairing, chef's kiss. And I think they're both just great ambassadors for the brand as a whole. Speaking of Zendaya, I want to talk about Law Roach. So Law Roach is Zendaya's stylist. They've been working together since the very beginning of her career. And I mean, I call him a stylist. He refers to himself as a brand architect, image architect. And I think that's a very fitting term for what he does, because he basically popularized this idea of method dressing. So that's when you make sure that the outfits you're wearing on the press tour tells the story of the film. And he really popularized it. Obviously, I think a lot of people noticed it with Barbie, which obviously he didn't work on, but he was the one that was doing it way before Barbie. Let's get that straight. He was doing it way before Barbie. So yeah, he did it on, like, I remember like The Greatest Showman, Press Tour, Far From Home, and then it really popped off when he did challenges. And that created so much cultural value and like free press for the film, which was insane. I remember suddenly, like once that challenges press store started, suddenly a lot of these department stores were selling tennis court outfits, and suddenly girls were walking around in tennis court outfits. Like, you all noticed that, and that's all Law Roach. So the reason why I bring this up is it time for studios, when they're putting together their marketing budgets, to include budgets for this kind of stuff, for method dressing? Because if you've got a stylist like Law Roach and an actress like Zendaya, and they're able to generate this much brand value, this much free press, this much earned media value, surely then, like, why are they fitting the bill for that fully? Like, I think studios need to start paying, need to include this in their marketing budget. And I just wanted to put it out there, see what people think, especially people that work in the fashion industry. I'm curious to hear what you think. And if you work for a studio as well, like, what are your thoughts? Is it time for the marketing budgets to kind of include method dressing and the styling? Because I feel like that's all part of the promo. And the amount of media value this generates is insane. The amount of cultural value. So yeah, let's get on it. Like, I'm opening a can of worms, and I'm just seeing what people think. And I think that's probably where we're heading. I don't see a world in which stylists continue to pay for this themselves fully. Maybe it gets subsidized. Maybe they pay for some of it, and then the marketing team, helps support some of the costs. But anyway, what do you think? Is it time for method dressing to become part of marketing? It already is. So should marketing pay for it? Let me know. We've got two more stories. So one is Netflix. So Netflix recently admitted that they've noticed that the ratings for their shows from season 1 and season 2, instead of building, has gone down. So they've noticed that a lot of shows tend to lose their audience by the time they get to season 2. Two reasons for this, I would say. The first is the gaps between seasons is too long. Like, yes, the gaps are too long. And also, we live in such a saturated market when it comes to film and television, that if you're putting out the season of television and then you're not going to get a second season to that for another 3 years, by the time that comes around, we're all chasing something new. It's that TikTokification of media. So I noticed it. Like, I'm always like looking for the new hot show, So if you're releasing your show 3 years later for a second season, and there's another hot show that's just come out, I'm gonna watch the other new hot show before I go back and watch season 2 of a show that came out 3 years ago. Mainly because I don't even remember what happened in season 1. So I have to go on YouTube. I have to find like a video of someone like summarizing it in 10 minutes. I feel like we've all done that. So I think that's a big problem. And also you have to remember, so the old model, and my solution would be that you commission 2 seasons at a time, so that by the time the first season drops in a single weekend, you've already got a second season ready to go the next year. And you, based on however season one performs, you can then immediately commission another season, knowing that you already have another season in the bank, so that in a year's time, people already have that coming. They don't have to wait 3 years. They already have another one coming. And then you can spend the next 2 years working on the third season, and then that way you kind of create a rhythm where, each year you will have a season of television for people. That's why shows like The Pit do so well, because again, people know that they're not going to have to wait long for a new season of television. And I think the reason why Netflix in particular are having issues with this is because all their shows come out in a single weekend, so the wait feels longer. Whereas if a show is released weekly over the course of 10, 15 weeks, by the time you get to episode 3, the studio knows whether this is a hit or not, and whether or not to commission a season 2. Whereas with Netflix, it gets released in a single weekend, then I have to just wait and see how that performs over the next month. And then commission it, and then you have to wait such a long time. Whereas if you're watching a show week to week, you're not even noticing, because you're basically watching the show for like 4 months or whatever. And then if the studio sees this potential, they can immediately commission a new season. Okay, Arianators, let's talk about Ariana Grande. So this was really sad. So she is no longer gonna be in American Horror Story, and I saw a lot of her fans were very upset the other day when this news came out. However, don't fret. I think I saw people like coming up with all kinds of conspiracy theories. I think the most simple answer is the tour she's on. Originally, this was meant to be a really small tour just to appease her fans. However, because of just the amount of demand there was for this tour, she ended up extending it. And now it's like, it's a full-blown tour now. So I can imagine, because of like how much longer this tour is, she just could not commit to this project. However, you're still gonna see her this fall in the latest Meet the Fockers movie. And I'm sure she's got other stuff lined up for next year. So you will see her soon. It is a shame she couldn't do this. And to be fair, if she wants to be like in movies and transition to that, I don't think she needs to be taking these detours and doing a television show. So I think in the long run, this might be good for her anyway. So it might be a blessing in disguise, but we will see. Okay, before we go, let's give a couple of shout outs. First of all, shout out to Madonna, Queen of Pop. I believe her latest album, Confessions 2, is #1 in the UK at the moment. And also, I think it's the first female artist ever have a #1 album in 5 consecutive decades. So round of applause to Madonna. That is incredible. What an achievement. Christopher Nolan, The Odyssey comes out this weekend. I can't wait to see it. I know someone that saw it at the premiere, and they absolutely adored it. So I've got tickets. I'm sad. I can't wait to see it this Friday. Get your tickets if you already haven't, and I will be discussing it next week. I can't wait to do that. Gracie Abrams, if you're looking for some music, she's got a new album coming out this Friday. Her last one was, I really enjoyed it. I think it showed a lot of promise. So I'm really intrigued to see where all that's going, and like how she's evolved for this record. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna be checking that out. I would recommend it. I think I might discuss it next week as well. Yeah, well, yeah, why not? I'll discuss it next week. So yeah, if you want something to listen to, maybe give that a go on Friday. And that's it. Oh my God, first episode done. That was a lot. We went through. In 30 minutes. But yeah, follow me on TikTok, stay for the credits. We're going to be dropping an episode every Sunday. I think I'm going to make Sunday my home, but we might change it. We'll see. But yeah, for now, every Sunday we will be here with a new episode of Stay for the Credits. We've got some guests coming up, and I can't wait to share them with you. We've got a couple of cool guests, so I can't wait to have them on and have you meet them and talk to them. Have them talk to you and hear about their stories, the stuff they've worked on, stuff they've got coming up, how to enter the industry and do what they're doing. So yes, I can't wait for you to meet them. But for now, thank you so much for listening. This was so much fun. Badara signing off. Have a good day. Bye.